And it is Friday morning, finally. And guess who is not here? The person who's been counting down with me.
Valentine's Day.
To Valentine's Day. Abandoned me. Well, maybe. But I'm not going to sing that song this morning. You abandoned me. You know that song, Kayla? Because you are here, and we have to say a wonderful morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maupe Ogun-Yusuf. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
It's 26 degrees here in the nation's capital, and it is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to you all. I'm Kayla Megwa.
Well, so much to talk about this morning, a lot on our plate. We can ask you to get ready to talk about matters affecting our internal security. So if you have issues to, bring up this morning, we certainly have the right guest for you. But while we look at that, we're also going to be taking you all the way to Gurara for those lovers who will be looking to hang out this weekend. This will be something to explore. It's all the way in Niger State, not too far from the FCT, not too far from Suleja, and it's always a sight to behold.
Indeed, it's a very beautiful waterfall there. I don't know, don't go there now. Sorry.
What sort of advice is that?
You can look at the film. I don't know about going there now. But, I think with like we say every time, whenever we show these beautiful places, that we need to feel secure to enjoy these places. But it's a lovely site. It's a lovely place to be. If you're someone who likes to travel, you have a high-risk appetite, then you should go to Gurara Falls and really enjoy how serene this place is. It's a magical feeling. Yes, I have been here. And it's one of those places where you just contemplate. It's one of those places that you sit and you contemplate and just think. One of the beautiful things about nature and majestic sites like Gurara Falls is that it reminds you of how small you are.
Indeed, Kayla.
It does. It's humbling in a way that I can't describe. You just realize that this world, honestly, as a person, you are the minority. Water is the owner of this planet. Water, plants, and insects. And as humans, you start to learn to respect these sorts of places. There are very tight rules, really, and this is some advice. There are tight rules when you go to these sorts of places. You can't litter. First of all, you're not allowed to litter. You're not allowed to go.
Why would you even want to do that?
Well, some people come with water or come with ding-ding. They come with alcohol, and they want to throw it away. You're not allowed to litter in places like this. You're not allowed to go near any of the animals, and stuff like that. Because, these are places that we conserve. These are places that are important to the country. And this waterfall in particular has a lot of historic relevance and stories behind it, and it's one that I think we have to continue to play on and make sure Niger State is more secure. There's so many beautiful things in Niger State that we want to visit, resorts and things that can make people enjoy their stay in the place. That's something that I'm looking forward to, Malpa.
Yeah, indeed. 2 times this week we've been to Niger State already, bringing you sights and sounds from the place. And we've not been paid to do so. So Governor Bago, the former governor, should take note that when we send our check,
we're sending a check.
We've been doing a lot of marketing for Niger State. But Kayla, you did say something about just how small you feel. It is amazing. I think it was the psalmist, King David, that sang, was talking to God and was saying, what is man that you keep him in mind?
Yes.
Mortal man that you care for him. That's basic. Yet, you have made him little less than a god. So in all of this, we have been placed above all of it.
Absolutely.
To dominate and take care of all of God's creation. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that something to really ponder on this beautiful Valentine's Day? If that doesn't get you to love yourself, I wonder what else will. Well, so much to look at this morning, and we're going to be bringing up this conversation which happened yesterday. You might have come across it, you might not have come across it, but take a listen to what it is that the Chief of Defense Staff said happened to him at the embassy.
Yes, and of course the track that we have is the NSA.
Oh yes, and of course the National Security Advisor, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, saying, go to hell. Right now, who is sending to hell?
Mobilizing stakeholders to curb insecurity in Nigeria is the focus of the maiden annual lecture of the Alumni Association of the National Institute for Security Studies, which attracted security experts. Emphasizing the need for Nigeria to assert herself on the global stage, the Chief of Defense Staff, who is the chairman of the occasion, stuns the gathering with an explanation of how his delegation invited to an event honoring war veterans in Canada were denied visa.
I was actually meant to, by yesterday, have been in Canada, Vancouver, Canada. There's an event to honor our veterans, those that were injured during battle. Remember last year the Duke of Sussex visited Nigeria with his wife. Through the Invictus, they have a foundation that they try to raise the morale of troops all over the world. They have suffered one form of deformity or the other in the course of defending their individual countries. So we're supposed to be there. And actually, half of my team have already gone, but unfortunately, the Canadian Embassy, for knowledge best known to them, denied us visa.
Addressing the denial, the National Security Advisor condemned the action of the Canadian government.
Thank you for the courage to say that Canada denied you. They can go to hell. Even though it's painful, it's disrespectful, but we are people, we are strong, and I agree with you. We have to fix our country. We have to do it well.
Nevertheless, the focus of the engagement was not lost as key issues to address the nation's security challenges are highlighted.
People are afraid of us. Meanwhile, we're busy talking ill of each other. Carry your social media. You see people talking, oh, this government is horrible, this one is horrible. It is to the advantage of the developed world, like the CDS said. If we have security, we'll develop. Without security, there can't be development. Without development, there can't be security.
So why can't we fight some miscreants, some charlatans among us together? The community should say, you cannot come here. This is what Tafawa Balewa has done. If you go to that community to attack them, you'll be sorry for yourself. I challenge anybody to try it. And this is the way we have to do. We have to allow some level of armament for the communities, and they can serve as the first line of defense.
The recommendation at this meeting is that all the necessary support, including communities, should be mobilized to address the nation's security challenges.
Well, we're looking at a number of issues this morning. That report we played to you, bringing you the events of yesterday, where the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, detailed his experience on what happened and how he himself and some other people on his, his convoy now were denied, or his contingent were denied Canadian visas. And you also heard the response of the National Security Advisor there. Well, you can make of it what you will. Let us know what you think. Use the feedback handles that we have sent to you. But that is not the thrust of our conversation this morning. This morning, we have the pleasure of hosting the Minister of Interior, Mr. Olubunmi, or shall I say, Dr. Olubunmi Tunjuju, who is the Minister of Interior. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. Happy Valentine's Day to you, may I say. You're almost wearing red. It's not quite red. It's a shade of red. And they always say something about how women know colors. We'll say this is burgundy, something along the lines, but we'll take it. So happy Valentine's Day to you.
Thank you.
Anyways, so quite a number of things. I do not know if you want to add a comment or two to what to the to events that transpired yesterday, you listening and hearing that someone in the rank of the Chief of Defense Staff was denied a visa by an embassy here in Nigeria.
Well, I think as much as I wouldn't want to say too much, but I think the NSA has spoken about it and well captured. And I think it speaks to issue of reciprocity of respect, between nations, because somebody who is the Chief of Defense Staff, that's the highest military personnel, in the country, and it's unexpected. It's I'll say it's condemnable, and without knowing the full facts. But I think even for us, in terms of visa policy, it means that issue of reciprocity, as I always say, has to be given due consideration, because when as much as we're not ready to dabble into the sovereignty or sovereign issues of other nations, issue of visas, issue of migration management is it's a sovereign issue. It borders on sovereignty and right of every nation. But as much as we don't want to dabble into that, but we think that it's not disrespect to the Chief of Defense Staff. To me, it's without knowing the facts, it's disrespectful to the country, and it's disrespectful to us as a people. If that can happen to the Chief of Defense Staff, then I'm worried. For an average Nigerian.
I mean, Honorable Minister, I know that there isn't enough. There aren't enough details as to why that was done in the first place. But I did go to the Canadian Embassy, their website, to see if there had been some kind of upgrade, because sometimes these things happen when there's an upgrade on their visa policy, and there was an upgrade, and that upgrade was on February the 12th. And that upgrade actually affects a lot of people. If there's a change in a person's status or circumstances, makes them inadmissible. And if an officer, that's the person in the embassy, is not satisfied that the person can leave Canada by the end of the authorized period, and the document, or if the document is lost or stolen. So they had actually just upgraded.
No, but excuse me.
Some of their policies.
I'm so sorry to interject. Don't let us mix words. We're talking about the Chief of Defense Staff. We're talking about a man who is the highest ranked, highest placed military person in Nigeria. That is not just a person. As much as I said, I believe there will be back-channel diplomatic solutions to this. But we have to say this, and we have to condemn it. My worry, it's not just about the Chief of Defense Staff. My worry is if this, because you will not tell me the Chief of Defense Staff is going to abscond. Or the Chief of Defense Staff cannot, because his bills will even be paid by government. So to me, I don't see any rationale. And even if there are questions that you need to ask, there are back-channel diplomatic ways, protocol-wise, of solving these issues. My worry is not about him. As you can see, I don't think he's bothered. But I, as a Minister of Interior, in charge of migration management, in charge of immigration, who handles the issue of visa issuance and, of course, entry permits and etc., gets bothered that, hey, are we being taken for granted here? So that's the discussion. The discussion is to the average Nigerian, to that hard-working family who just wants a holiday, to that businessman who wants to go to Canada to explore business opportunities legitimately, to that Nigerian who all he needs is education, who can afford it. So my worry is about that average Nigerian, not just about the Chief of Defense Staff. Is an individual, yes. But if this can happen to him, then there's a cause for concern.
It's very important that point is made.
I sincerely believe that, knowing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I know my colleague, Ambassador Tuga, will be on top of this.
I want you to be able to, sorry about that, I want you to be able to get your thoughts, because one of the criticisms that we've heard from that particular event was that the language that was used by the NSA, many people online and in many fora, they've said it wasn't very complimentary, that phrase, go to hell.
Well, I think we should not, I think we should talk more of the action rather than the reaction. And that's my sincere opinion. It's basic Newton's law in physics, action and reaction. But as much as I don't want to, as I sit here, I don't have the full details. But what I believe is that, let's assume there are areas that needed clarification. There are diplomatic back channels, because we are talking about to me, this is the head of the Nigerian military, for crying out loud.
And I think that point has been made, Honorable Minister, because I also see here on the front page of Daily Trust, that the embassy is saying that they'll state their position. So we'll wait and see just what the position is and what precisely, could have led to what many Nigerians have regarded as an
No, but for me, as much as I agree with that, and I don't want to really stretch this, my position is that if there is mutual respect,
that shouldn't.
Exactly, there are back channels. You are talking about a chief of defense staff. You can reach out to the office or to foreign affairs. The foreign affairs interfaces on behalf of Nigeria with all embassies and consulates.
And in some instances, by now, the foreign minister would have been summoning the Canadian ambassador to find out what precisely
I'm pretty sure, knowing the Minister of Foreign Affairs for who he is, I'm sure a lot of work will be going on the back channel. And most diplomatic activities are not on the pages of newspaper.
Absolutely.
Most of them are via back channels. And I'm sure that the meetings are going on. And I want to know, because I know the Canadian government has always been very responsive to Nigerians, so this coming, maybe because, as you said, change of the policy, but whatever it is, the status of the CDS has not changed. He's not a former CDS. He is the present
and serving
so
CDS.
Nothing has changed, but I believe as a country, the Minister of Foreign Affairs will take that diplomatic channel and resolve all these issues in the interest of Nigeria. But I'm happy that at least we have an opportunity to talk about this. And on the back channel, it's not just going to be, let's issue, but to the average Nigerian, let us be treated with respect.
Well, you are looking at a number of things for the average Nigerian in your own ministry, and quite something significant was approved by the Federal Executive Council beginning of this week. A new paramilitary academy, we understand. What precisely is that about?
Yeah, thank you. It's not just a new. It's like the first, that's a degree awarding institution. Because we realize that in terms of national security architecture, we have the police, we have the paramilitary, then we have the military. And we realize that the level of output is dependent on the training that you have. And we saw that paramilitary jobs were becoming more or less like an empowerment program. When people go to school, they graduate, they look for a job, they just take civil defense. But that's not the whole idea
like a poverty alleviation program.
But that is not the idea within the security architecture. When you see the police has a police university in Wudil. You graduate, you go straight into the police force, you become, an officer of the police. The military, they have their defense academy, where it's a degree awarded students. They're young Nigerians, energetic Nigerians. We can catch them young and mold them to fine officers that will be able to serve the country. And that is why when you look at the level of discipline, we do respect in the military. It's quite different from the level of discipline that you have with due respect in the paramilitary. Because we employ graduates. We do not mold graduates. So we want a scenario whereby Nigerians, once you leave secondary school, you write your JAMB, you will be able to enter the school. It's a degree awarding institution. Then you have 4 years, 5 years of training you, of molding. It's called Catch Them Young. We catch them young, we mold them to fine officers of paramilitary. What is the responsibility of paramilitary from the name? The paramilitary is supposed to consolidate the military. And you cannot consolidate when you are not on the same wavelength. You cannot consolidate when you are not on the same track, when your visions are not aligned. Do not forget that the national security strategy is one. Every other agency needs to plug in. But in a scenario whereby you employ 20-something, 30-something, even in the military, there's direct shortcuts, but that is for a few. But we know that there is, you go to NDA as a 16, as a 17 or 18-year-old. You go through, you earn your degree, then you become a fine officer. It means that from your secondary school, the only thing that you know is the military life. And that's what we want for our paramilitary. So that we will be able to provide fine officers, and at the end of the day, we will not just mold them in terms of skills, we will not just mold them, but even in terms of character. I'll give you an example. A lot of officers today that we recruit, even most of the officers in service in Nigerian Correctional Service, for example, do not even understand what it takes to be a correctional officer. Let's call a spade. Because if you are going and towing the line of correctional service from the academy, psychology has to be, you have to be trained on psychology. Because your responsibility is to correct. Your responsibility is to be a transformative agent. Your responsibility is to be an agent of rehabilitation and reformation. So you develop this from a young age, you grow into the system, and once you graduate from that, you will go either as a civil defense officer, either as a correctional service officer, immigration officer, fire service, or whatever.
It's a good thing that you just mentioned the agencies that you're hoping to feed with this paramilitary institution. First, I have a number of questions, but I want to quickly know, from approval now to implementation, how quickly do you see this materializing?
In the first place, the president is very keen on this because it's about building structure. It's about building a lasting system. It's about building legacy. Because what we inherited, with due respect, was, a room that fits all. But that is not the idea of security.
It brings to my mind, when it comes to the NSCDC, because that's one of the agencies that you just mentioned right now. So what was feeding them before? Was it just an all-comers affair?
Yeah, because the way it was before was a recruitment process, just like the civil service recruitment process, where we do adverts in the papers, graduates will apply, and when they apply, or depending on categories, we'll screen them, they do written exam, we pick them, they do maybe a couple of months training, they go and join. And those are people by law that are supposed to be the protector of critical national asset of government. So in case you do not know, your pipeline is a critical asset of government. The schools are critical assets of government. Electricity. So for somebody, that alone dovetails into counter-terrorism responsibilities.
So, Honorable Minister, as I said, fine idea. From approval to implementation.
No, the FEC, the last FEC, FEC has directed the Attorney General to come up with an executive bill. Just as you know, the renewed Hope government, with due respect, is not built on lawlessness. It's built on rule of law. And for you to have an institution like that, there must be, it's beyond what the executive will just do. So it has to have a legal instrument, a legal backing. And that will be drafted by the Attorney General. From there, it goes to the National Assembly. We know that it's an executive bill. And of course, we all understand that in view of our internal security pressure at the moment is what is actually needed. So we know that our colleagues in the National Assembly will do the needful, and once that is signed into law, we see that within the next 1 year, by the grace of God, we should be able to...
So you're looking at 1 year for the passage of the bill?
No. I mean for it from end to end, for us to be able to put all necessary structure on ground in terms of passage of the bill, the assent, curriculum development, because we want to
the structure,
because to me, we have to take our time to plan it well. It's a legacy, and like what I also say, if you look at the security architecture today, you will see how stretched our military is, with due respect, because there are a lot of responsibilities today that the military is carrying that should be carried by paramilitary. And that's the truth. The military is for, in case of external aggression, and of course, but when you look at it today, for instance, when there's a riot, I'm just giving an example, the military, when you look at pipeline protection, you see the military, when you see our mast, our solidarity, so the military is stretched. So we just think it is time, and that's what the president just taught in his wisdom, that let's have this legacy. Let us build a system that will be able to free the military a bit of internal security responsibilities. Once the military is freed of that, then the military will be able to perform maximally their core responsibility, while the internal security architecture will be handled by agencies of internal security agencies such as NSCDC, immigration, police, and all the rest.
It's interesting that you brought up the jobs for some of the... I remember when you became minister, and I actually followed you. We went to see all of the places that have... Because you were so gung-ho on the mandate that was given to your ministry by the president. Now, I want to bring up one area, and it's in tying with some of the work that your ministry has to do with security, internal security in the country. Let's talk electricity. You talked about right now the protection of critical national assets.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking about electricity for a very long time, and of course, the Minister of Power has been explaining that, look, it's vandalism. It's a lot of vandalism. And we see, at least for the AEDC in Abuja, almost every day, somebody has vandalized something somewhere, and because of that vandalism, there's no light in so and so area. It's almost daily that we get these, and we appreciate them for speaking to us, at least in many places, like we're told, they don't even speak to the people at all. But I want to be able to talk about this recurring vandalism. How is your ministry positioning itself to handle the recurring vandalism of power assets in our country?
Well, I think it's part of what I think you asked the question, and you've also answered the question, and I will tell you how. In the first place, let's get this straight. These are the things, it's about the appropriate structure. You see, you can't prefer short-term solutions to long-term problems. And also, you can't prefer long-term solutions to short-term problems. You must prefer solutions that are commensurate with the problems. We did a small pilot of what we can do with the mine marshals. We had this issue, and if you will, you're in the media, you can confirm this, that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, issue of mining issue, was a real security, was a mess, was a problem. There were mines in Zamfara, and yes, we're not yet there. But last year, myself and the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dr. Dele Alaki, we came together. And we created an arm of the civil defense called the mine marshals. Strictly, we trained them on issues because every sector is unique. What you need to protect the power sector is not what you need to protect the mining sector. It's not what you need to protect the oil and gas sector, because the threats are different. You do what you call threat assessment. When you do your threat assessment, it is the result of your threat assessment that will give you the security strategy to it. And we trained them, and today, you can see that even in the last data, the revenue from solid minerals has increased. Insecurity has reduced. It shows that there's impact. That has worked. So we have decided now with Minister of Power to have what we call the Power Rangers, to be able to have specific officers of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. Because what we had before we came was a generalization of national assets, the protection of critical national. But when we came on board, we saw that no, you cannot have one particular medication that suits all illnesses. You can't do that. So you have to analyze every sector, the water sector, the power sector, the educational sector, the health sector. You have to analyze all this and be able to create arms of civil defense under the same umbrella. Power
Rangers.
Yes.
So let me ask the same question Malkwe asked. From starts to, when are we expecting them? What's the timeline?
No, we've already agreed on the modus operandi.
Okay.
And as I speak to you, the officers are being screened, picked. Because what we did with the solid mineral, don't forget that we're going to have all these officers in all the 36 states plus FCT, because there's no state without a power infrastructure. It's just like the solid mineral. So you can't have a central body just in Abuja and expect that they will be able to respond to something that happens in Maiduguri. So we are already in the process of onboarding those officers, because we have to profile them, look at their capacity, look at their competence, look at their area of specialization, there are a lot of considerations, even physical strength and a lot of things. So once we analyze all this, is what we are doing at the moment, then we will now train them. You know, I wouldn't go too deep into the level of training that we give them. We now train them in terms of even threat assessment, because a good security apparatus, a good security architecture is not a security architecture that is curative in nature. It's a security architecture that is detective and preventive in nature. Once it happens, security has failed. Once that disaster occurs, security has been breached. So a security architecture in America, they will tell you they receive millions of threats almost every day. But America will not talk about the millions that were nipped in the bud. The people will only talk about the one that succeeds. That is security. And that's why security is not a 99% performance-driven industry. Security is a 100% performance-driven industry, because a single 0.1% lag can cause crisis. So we are going to train them in issue of threat assessment, issue, and a lot of other issues. Then from there, they will be, because that's what we did with solid minerals. They are not under my control. They are my officers. Yeah. They are officers of my ministry, but they are under the control of solid minerals. So that there is no bureaucracy. The Minister of Solid Minerals needs to give instruction. Oh, there is a threat here or whatever, and he needs to call Minister of Interior. There is no, you see, the beauty, with due respect, without sounding patronizing of the renewed hope agenda, the beauty is collaboration, knowing that it's nation building, it's a joint task. So for the Power Rangers, they're not going to be under my command. They're going to be under the Ministry of Power. But they are civil defense officers. So Ministry of Power will be able to, because they know their infrastructure more than I do. So once we train them, we send them there, then of course they get their salaries from here, but the key response, and it's the same thing when we move to petroleum sector. We hope to be able to move to petroleum sector after the power sector. Once we move there, then they will also, once we create that special team, they will be under the command of the petroleum industry, so that every sector you will now have specialists. We don't want to have jack of all trades, master of none.
It's a good thing you just mentioned the petroleum sector, because I also know that the fire service is under your ministry, and you know, in recent times we have been recording some tanker fires along our roads, and it's been really, really disturbing. I do not know, you know, if your ministry has also, you know, raised concern, because while we're trying to keep our people safe internally, it does appear that we're losing significant number of lives owing to, you know, safety issues, things that could have been prevented, perhaps with education, perhaps with prevention if the fire service were on the ground. What exactly is the relationship between the federal fire service and the fire service and state governments?
Okay, let me tell you. I'll tell you that the biggest problem of this government, with due respect, and I'm not sounding I don't want to be uncharitable here, is that we inherited too many things to be done at the same time. But it's not an excuse. We asked, as the president will always say, he asked for the job, so no room for complaints. It will interest you that the Fire Service Act is a major problem of the industry. And when your act, because what gives birth to you is the law. If the law is faulty, then your performance can never work. Because your performance is a function of the mandate given by the law.
What's the problem with the act?
The problem is that the Fire Service Act is Fire Service Act of 1963. As I speak to you, we've already sent a bill. We're working hard in the National Assembly to amend that. The law, everywhere in the world, the fire service is a rescue service. Let's understand that. It's called Fire and Rescue Service all over the world. If you go to the UK, you go to the US, you go to Japan, anywhere in the world, EMS, even emergency medical service, is manned by the fire service. Fire service is supposed to be the first responder in any emergency situation, beyond even fire. Even if there is flood, if there is anything, it's the fire service that. So it's a massive responsibility. It's supposed to be the national, emergency response. NEMA manages emergency, but response is fire service all over the world. But we have a law in 1963 that was not the mindset. That's number one. Number two, you have anywhere in the world, the fire service is supposed to be an enumerator. It's supposed to be an implementer, and it's also supposed to be a monitor of rescue and emergency services. For instance, you build a house. What are the considerations for emergencies and co? It's all over the world.
Yeah.
Safety. It should be fire service. The law does not give them that power.
Yeah, but they're carrying it out, right?
No, but they are carrying in an advisory position, not in an enforcement position. You can't enforce a law, a power you don't have. You can't.
So if you don't keep to the fire code, they can't stop you from building.
You can't, exactly. So that is a problem. For example, public centers. I will give you an example.
Market.
You go to markets, you go to churches, you go to mosques, you go to different places. That is a place, or is a public place. Public safety is paramount. There is a limitation to what the fire service can do to enforce these things. That's that. Then thirdly, I'll give you, as I said earlier, security is about being proactive. It's about proactiveness. It's not about being reactive. Security is like football. A good goalkeeper, what distinguishes a good goalkeeper from a great goalkeeper is that a good goalkeeper knows how to dive to touch the ball. A great goalkeeper knows positioning. Less effort, he positions himself, he catches the ball. That is like security. So security is a proactive industry. Now, I'll give you an example. Every fire, you look at Balogun Market, for example, how big Balogun Market is. It's becoming like an annual ritual or recurring decimal for fire incidents every year. We all know during Harmattan. Now, fire starts little. It is not that this fire cannot be curtailed at that early stage. But the question is this: can government provide enough boots on ground to protect all critical infrastructures for fire and rescue services? The answer is a no. And that is why you see even in the US, you see in the UK, all over the world, industrialized countries. What is it that government does?
You know, recently...
Government brings, just let me land on this point. What government now has the right to train private sector, license private sector for participation to be first line responders before help comes. I'll give you an example. Most people that have fire extinguishers in their hotels, even in their homes, see it as just a piece of furniture. They don't know how to use it. So these are issues.
So these are the issues, but I want to know where I think the issue
but with the law,
I was going to say, are you saying that the law is what has been preventing them from being more proactive?
No, definitely.
And saving more lives than they ought to, or is it a lack of equipment, a lack of funding? Precisely, is that what you're saying?
Let me tell you, the most important thing in life, this is democracy. Democracy is built on the premise of the rule of law.
So the law has been
preventing. If the law is faulty, if the law says today a man is a woman, that when a man goes to a bank,
I wish you would use another example. I wish you would use another example.
What I'm saying is that the law, you are who the law says you are. That's what I'm saying.
Indeed.
And you are what the law says you are. So for me, it is important for us to build a legal structure, because once the law is worked on, believe me, you'll be creating a permanent solution to this. Then you will not be able to call for accountability. But when the mandate is not there,
the time
it's
is
difficult.
Flying. the time is flying. And we still have so many things that we need to discuss with you about. I want to be able to go to prisons now. Let's talk about, because this is recent.
Correctional service.
Correctional, yes. Yeah. Because I saw that you have done that change. Yes, it's no more the prison service. It's not a place for punishment. It's a place for correction. You said that recently when you got that visit from from Vaughan. So listening to you say that, and then we stay talking about, okay, so the prisons, what do they need? And I saw that you said there's an approval for 50 doctors and 100 nurses to take care of inmates. Could you expatiate on that? And is that number enough? I've been to Kuje with you before, and we saw that there are a lot of people that are sick in the hospital. And you talked about the feeding and everything at that time. Let's talk about that healthcare. I've been to that dispensary. Okay. There's nothing in there.
No, I wish you can go now, and I challenge you.
Okay.
Please go to the hospital in Kuje. Do a video. If it's
they won't let me.
I will. Just go to the hospital. Okay. I will. If the standard is below what is expected, please call me out.
Okay.
We have changed that.
Okay.
You see, all we decided to do is not to concentrate on what we inherited. Because we were not, I personally as Minister of Interior, I was not appointed by the President to make excuses. I was appointed to prefer solutions in line with his dreams for Nigeria. Now, about corrections, that's part of what I was saying earlier. What is the difference between a prison and a correctional center? A prison is a place of incarceration. A prison is a place for punishment for an offense. A correctional center is a place for reformation, a place for transformation, a place for rehabilitation, a place of hope. And I am happy that we did the memo to the president, and that we had issues, medical issues, because you can't put, for instance, I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, in the whole of River State, we didn't have a single doctor in terms of our correctionals. And I'm not proud to say this, but we went to the president with a memo and said, that, Mr. President, this is the challenge. And immediately he signed right there and gave the instruction. Number one, what did we do? Our retiring officers, the lot of officers, 60 years old, 60 years is the retirement age by virtue of public service rule. Some of them are still energetic, some of them are still interested in working. The president approved for us to offer them to continue for those that want to continue, which is on a yearly contract basis. So at least because they are not doing any hard work, they're just using their brain, they're doctors. People run private medical practice till 70. Let's call it spade a spade. They run till 65. So why are we going to retire everybody because they're 60 when we don't have replacements? And you keep people in a closed circle, in a closed environment, they're sick and there is no medical attention. The essence is to correct them, not to kill them. The essence is to take care of them because government will be held responsible if anything happens to these inmates, because the court has sent them to the NCOS to keep in safe custody, not for you to go and malign, not for you to go and even decimate their being psychologically. So he approved that. That's number one. That has added a lot to our workforce. Number two, he also approved that, okay, based on our needs assessment, because you can't go and ask for what you don't need. He approved for us to urgently recruit 50 doctors and 100 nurses with immediate effect, which is presently ongoing. It's captured in the budget. And the third one, which is a short-term solution, is for us to be able, for NYSC, to send medical doctors to correctional service, because there is nothing more about national service than those that take care of the weak. Because somebody in a correctional center is already a weak person, because you've taken the freedom of movement, which is a key factor in terms of what makes you who you are. So in providing solutions to the medical needs of our people in terms of personnel, because the medical issues, the medical issue is broken into two.
Oh, yeah.
One, it's about the personnel, and two, the facility.
Yes.
Because if you have the right doctor, you don't have the right drugs or equipment, it's a different ballgame. So in terms of the personnel, he gave two short-term solutions. Those officers that have retired on 1 year, let's keep them as retainership, which is novel. Number two is the NYSC. Then the long-term solution is the recruitment. And as we see that there is need for more officers, that we need more, then we'll write back to him, and I'm sure he will. Then in terms of facilities, we have started in 1 or 2 places, like I told you about Kuje, with their machines. It's not just about.
I'm looking for stuff because I want to be able to bring that up.
I will take you. I give you my word. I'll take you.
No problem. I'm holding you to that word.
For you to see what we're, and also
I want to be able to because we just have a few minutes.
Yeah.
We heard the Minister of Communication. One of the briefings are about to continue. I think the
Minister of Information.
The Minister of Information said the briefings are about to continue, where you give your scorecard, and the President has said ministers should give their scorecard. I want to give you a few minutes to tell us why. If there was a reshuffling, we don't know if that's going to happen. Last time I heard the President talk about it, he said it wasn't going to happen. But let's say the President decides to reshuffle his cabinet. Why should you remain in that cabinet? In just a few minutes, I think it's an opportunity to highlight maybe some of the things that you've done.
Well, as much as I wouldn't like to blow my trumpet, and for me, it's not about me, For me, it's about implementing the renewed hope agenda, bringing hope to the people with respect to my mandate, and I think that we've been able, God has helped us to be able to contribute that. And I'm happy today that anybody that comes into the country from Lagos or Abuja, as we speak, the era of wait till you bring come by some officers is gone, because like what I always say, the easiest way of killing corruption is to reduce human contact. Once you remove human contact, you're good. And all you do now is put your passport scan, the e-gate records you. You go, nobody stamps your passport anymore. We've joined that league. And that has been, and I'm happy that, and of course, the APs that we deployed, even Interpol confirmed, a lot of people on Interpol wanted list, criminals have been apprehended at our borders now between December and now. Just because we put the infrastructure, in place. And also, we promised on PoliticsToday, we promised the contactless passport solution. And I'm happy that in November we started in Canada. Last week, Friday, precisely a week ago, we started in UK and in Europe. And as of today, we have done over 1,000 people in UK and Europe alone. Yeah,
you did say you're going to start on the 7th of February in the UK.
Yeah, we did. We did.
You said on the 7th of February.
That was last week. Yes, that was 7th. Last week, Friday. Yes, we did. And we'll be starting 7th of March in Africa, inclusive of Nigeria and Asia, because in line with project management principle, you can't start everything at the same time. We started with Canada, used that to test the solution, because the solution was 100% built by Nigerians. It's an indigenous solution, all right? So, because we sincerely believe that we need to also give opportunities for Nigerians to excel. And I tell you that Canada is stable. Now we've moved to Europe, and just yesterday I was told over 100 envelopes were sent, because self-addressed envelope, because once we print, you send us your self-addressed envelope to your address, we put it in and send it back to you. Yesterday alone, over 100.
Contactless system for the issuance of passports.
For the renewal.
For the renewal, yes, okay. If you're issuing for the very first time, people still have to go to the...
Because the way the technology works is that, which was what motivated this, because we're actually one of the first to really deploy that, and the reason is simple. When I became Minister of Interior, and the President gave me a machine order. The issue of passport was a mess, all over. People have to wait for months and all these things. And we thought that what's the actual problem? The number of passports that we issue, over 70% are renewals. So if you cure the problem of renewals, automatically you remove the bottleneck. And we saw that people were increasing fees, a lot of corruption because of human contact. So we just thought that, okay, why do people need to go to immigration office? For instance, when you need to renew your passport, you live here, you go to Gwagwalada or whatever. What do you go and do there? Just biometric. And meanwhile, the biometric you are taking is not being used for the issuance of your passport. It's just for the purpose of authentication and verification of what we have in the database. The question is this is 2025, not 1985. Why do you need to leave the comfort of your home to authenticate who you are? So we came up with the idea of the contactless biometric to deploy the solution. So once there are different checks, liveness check, there's a biometric fingerprint, and of course the eye. So once you do that, it confirms that you are who you say you are. Then we print your passport and courier it to you.
Yeah, so that's working in Nigeria now?
No, we've not started that in Nigeria.
And so people still have to go to the the immigration office?
In Nigeria, it will start on the 7th of March, I guess, 7th of March. Because we started with Canada, that was November 1st. So we tried, of course there were hitches here and there, which is normal with anything.
How do we intend to send it to the people in Nigeria? Are we going to be working with NIPOST?
No, definitely it's going to be via courier, because the whole thing is that if you look at in the US, you don't go to immigration office, or in the UK, you don't go to home office to go and get your passport, you go to post office and whatever. And the reason is not just for the purpose of convenience, it's also for the purpose of national security. Because the passport does not belong to you. The passport carries your details, but it's the property of the Nigerian government. So government should be able to trace its property to a particular address at any point in time. Because you see a lot of people having different fictitious addresses.
Honorable, Minister, I asked that because we know that in these places where you have also mentioned, their delivery systems, their courier system works, their national courier system works. Yeah. So I'm asking, are we going to be using our own national courier system? Or we're going to be using that of the private sector?
No, of course, we will be using a private sector driven courier system.
That's what I wanted to confirm.
What is important for us, it's based on, because we inherited, when I came, there was agreement, that we inherited. All we had to do is to say, hey, listen, the agreement, you are to be delivering unprocessed passports. We said, no, we are centralizing our personalization. And once we centralize our personalization, then the ease of delivery becomes the problem. And we believe that in activating that particular clause of the agreement, then we will be able to solve that problem.
So let me ask you about e-borders, which is another issue that has come up. You have said that, there's been some misconceptions around e-border, that you've only activated the first phase, phase 1 of it, which covers about 40 kilometers, which is really, really small.
Yeah, it is 40 kilometers.
How much does it cover in the first phase?
I can't recollect. What I said is that it covers about 60% of our border space. And our border is 4,047 kilometers, if I'm not wrong. So 60% of that should be in the range, that should be about 2,000, that should be about 2,400 and something kilometers. So never 40 kilometers. If it's 40 kilometers, I won't come on air and talk about it. What we said is that it's phase 1, all right? And we've completed the first phase, which is 60 kilometers. And of course, the 40 kilometers will be in the phase 2.
40 kilometers will be in the phase?
Sorry, the 40%.
40%
of our land border, terrestrial border space will be in phase 2. But 60%, which is about 2,400 and with some fractions kilometers, being captured in.
That includes the airports, is that correct? Or?
No.
You're talking about the general
We're
land
talking about
border.
land borders.
Yes.
At the level, our border solution at the airport is quite different. Our border solution includes the APs, includes the e-gate, includes the MIDAS solution, and so many other solutions that we have, which I wouldn't want to go too deep into because there are security issues, right? But when you talk about the e-border, it's mainly for our terrestrial, because that's where we have most of the challenges, because of the peculiar nature of our border. Two peculiar problems. Problem number 1 is the fact that we have a lot of contagious communities, especially in Ogun, even in
the north of Nigeria.
North of Nigeria, in Adamawa, in a lot of places where you have, even Katsina, you have a community, that is just, between two countries, and that dates back to pre-colonial issues. Do not forget that some of these borders were determined not by Nigeria and its neighbors. These borders were determined by the colonial masters, you understand, especially the French and British, So these are some of the liabilities that we inherited. But I can tell you that the Boundary Commission, which is statutorily responsible for sorting out issues that has to do with borders, is actually working on that. That's number 1. Then number 2, and of course it's difficult for you to bring physical infrastructure to demarcate them, because these are families, like in places like Ogun, there are people that sleep in Nigeria, but they farm in Benin Republic. Yes, it's true. So it's difficult for you because you're talking about ethnicity, you're talking about family, you're talking about things that people are very sensitive about. So as a responsible government, we cannot just come with brute force, and we have to manage that. And I know the Boundary Commission is working on that. Then the second reason why it is quite tough is also the fact that we are surrounded. We used to be surrounded. We are surrounded by we have 4 countries that borders Nigeria terrestrially. Don't let us forget, we have Cameroon, we have Chad, we have Niger and Benin Republic. And of these, only 2 are ECOWAS, 2 are non-ECOWAS. Cameroon is not an ECOWAS country. Chad is not an ECOWAS country. And
now Nigeria has left.
That is, I will not sit here to admit that, as an officer of government and as Minister of Interior, because a lot of ECOWAS is still working on that. So let's see.
They've since exited. But let's not go there. If we don't want to go there, let's not go there. But
what I'm saying is that we have 2 countries that are non-ECOWAS, countries. And when you look at the problem, the people that borders Nigeria, especially from the southern part of Nigeria with Cameroon, they are English speaking. They are the Anglophone part of it. So it becomes an issue because there are issues between the Anglophone and the French speaking. So there are a lot of issues within the region that are quite a bit tough. So that makes, and also, why is border control a bit difficult in Nigeria. And this government has done a lot. We've done a lot. We've arrested a lot. For the first time, we are deporting people now in Nigeria. And I'll tell you why it's been a bit tough. It's because Nigeria is a country that falls within 2 regions. Don't let us forget that. It's like the challenge that that Turkey has been part of Europe, part of Asia, you know. So it's the same thing when you look at Nigeria, you know, we fall within the Sahel, we also fall within the Gulf of Guinea. So we know that of the 10 poorest countries in the world, about 6 of them are in the Sahel. So Nigeria is in the Gulf of Guinea, and of the biggest, richest countries in Africa, a lot of them are in the Gulf of Guinea. So there is a migration from the Sahel to the Gulf of Guinea. So it's a major issue being at the window. We are like the door.
Yes,
we are like
have just
the
2 minutes, Honorable Minister, but before you go, I want to be able to get you to talk about this year and what your plans are. If there was one, let's say 2 or 3, maybe let's make it 3. If there were 3 major things that your ministry is going to do for the Nigerian people in 2025, what would those 3 things be? Number 1, enhancement of internal security, which is the core responsibility and protection of critical national assets. That's number 1. Number 2 is the law, the enactment, facilitation of the repeal and enactment of a Fire Service Act. That because there is no industrialized country that will not have a functional fire and rescue service. You can't be an industrialized country and there is fire issue or rescue issues and there's no response. So for us to be able to hit our target of $1 trillion, for us to bring investors into Nigeria, we need a functional, vibrant, professional fire and rescue service. That would be my number 2. And of course, my number 3 is citizenship integrity, which is the core responsibility of the Ministry of Interior.
Well, we certainly will be looking forward to that, and we hope to catch up with you later in the year, or certainly within the course of his administration. We have to thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for coming on the program this morning. We have been speaking with Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, who is the Minister of Interior. Once again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Mopa. Thank you for
Happy Valentine's Day once more.
Thank you.
Oh, we're going to be taking a break. I'm sure Ini is very happy to hear that, you know, we're looking at a very vibrant fire service, you know, this year, protecting assets and also making sure that people who invest their money don't lose it. So stay tuned and, you know, wait until Ini comes in. I hope it's Ini. I hope so too. It's not Ladi that's going to be surprising me this morning. But yes, Business Morning on Sunrise Daily is on top of the hour. Please stay with us.
Yes, it is Ini. Yes, you're correct. Mark, I fear not. And Kayla, yes, it's Ini on this other side of business. And I wish you ladies happy Valentine. And I know that you have plans afterwards. Just take it easy, you know, and be back at work on Monday. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily, where we do just about 30 minutes of business before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We're starting from the global space as usual. Valentine hasn't disturbed oil prices. This morning, we see it's just going up there in early trade. It's set to snap a 3-week losing streak amid rising fuel demand and expectations that Trump's plan for reciprocal global tariffs would not come into effect until April, and that's giving more time to avoid that a trade war. Look at the numbers for this morning. 19 cents this morning is more than, in fact, almost 2%. It's 1.90%. $75.25 a barrel, while WTI has 1.2%, and that's $71.41 a barrel. Global oil demand surged to 103.4 million barrels a day, and that's a 1.4 million barrels increase year on year. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered commerce and economics officials to study reciprocal tariffs against countries that place tariff on U.S. goods and to return their recommendations by April 1. However, a potential peace deal between Russia and Ukraine has kept traders concerned that an end of sanctions on Moscow could boost global energy supplies. And of course, that will bring down price. Also this week, President Trump ordered U.S. officials to begin talks on ending the war in Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed desire for peace in separate phone calls with him. Russian oil exports could be sustained if workarounds to the latest U.S. sanctions package are found after Russian crude production rose slightly last month. The International Energy Agency shared this in their latest oil market report. And looking at the Naira, but first I think we do have to set our DSTV viewers over to Adamawa State, where it's, I think, the 5th day we've been seeing the swearing in of some traditional leaders right there. So it continues today in Adamawa, but that's for our DSTV viewers and not for the others. For others, we're still here. Business Morning on Sunrise Daily continues. And if you're on YouTube, you can switch to the next switch. And all right, so now continuing with Business Morning, look at how the Naira fared yesterday. Yesterday was active in the market, but at the end of the trading session, we saw on NAFEM it was unchanged. They opened at 1,504 Naira, 30 kobo, closed the same. And then NAFEX, we see that there was just a slight change. CBN also, it was unchanged. Could we say the market was stable? But I guess you can't judge with just one trading session. So even though we see a lot of unchanged, just slight movement at the close of Thursday's trade, we cannot say this is for stability. Well, no, there was also OMO yesterday. Open market operations auction was on by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So the market was really active, but at the end of the day, we did see this close for the various platforms. And talking about the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria has given more explanations on the new 100 Naira charge on ATM withdrawals known as Not On Us transactions. According to the Apex Bank, the charge on transactions on other bank ATMs is necessary to ensure constant supply of cash. The CBN's acting director of financial policy and regulation, Mr. John Onoja, who was a guest on Business Incorporated, explains that the charge applies regardless of the amounts withdrawn, warns that any bank restricting withdrawals below 20,000 Naira against the customer's wish will be penalized.
Now, we are going to ensure now that the customer has cash anytime he goes to the ATM. And one other thing that you're going to see now, you must have seen an amount of 20,000 being mentioned several times within that short circular. And what that means is that the experiences that we have when we get to the ATM, and then you are told you cannot withdraw more than 5,000, especially when it is not on us, or 10,000 as the case may be, is going to stop.
Government has announced an 18% fare increase for bus rapid transit, that's BRT system, and other regulated public buses under the Bus Reform Initiative. That's effective from Monday, 17th of February. The Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata, disclosed this in a post and says, according to Lamata, the fare adjustment is driven by rising operational costs faced by bus operators, and that is expected to commence on Monday. A bit of corporate now. Odua Investment Company says it is focused on creating more jobs for young people in the country through its diversification and expansion plans. The chairman of Odua Group, Mr. Bimbo Ashiru, made this known at the group's annual meeting in Lagos. According to him, key areas of focus for the group include industrialized agriculture as well as expansion in the hospitality sector.
What we have done in Premier, we are going to do the same thing in this building. Ikeja Airport Hotel. We are bringing investors. This is over 65,000 square meters that we are going to bring in. We are going to have a mixed use here where we have the 5-star hotel, we have the shopping mall, we have Airbnb where people can stay, short let and everything. So those are the areas we are focusing on. And rest assured that in the next few years, you see what we are doing. Even the marginal field, by God's grace, very soon, by the second or third quarter of this year, Odua will be an oil-producing company.
Well, getting more oil-producing companies in the country, I believe, will boost supply and help price one way or the other. Now, it's Valentine's Day, and well, I know perhaps you already have your plans and all of that. We have a conversation waiting for you for business during Business Incorporated. But for this morning, just to give you an idea, just in case you're preparing to make plans, let's see what prices are like. So going through some available packages for today, for the weekend, we did notice that there are packages that range from, for instance, English breakfast could cost you about 60,000 naira. Main meal could do about 100,000 naira. Weekend combo, because I know being a Friday, it would spill over to the weekend. You can do about 50,000. That's like, you know, something really light. A bottle of wine, that's a package. A bottle of wine, cake, meal, live band, you can have about 150,000 naira. And then looking at the hotel packages, well, there's some packages for couples, and what we see, at least for the 5-star, basically, will go from 175,000 or from 150. And of course, when you look down memory lane, you would see that this price is about 20-30% more than what it was this time last year. So I guess it's good to work for money and also make money work for you while you relax, and we wish you a happy Valentine. Now, to some other serious business, President Bola Tinubu had on February 5 raised the proposed 2025 budget from 49.7 trillion to 54.2 trillion, citing additional revenues generated by key government agencies. According to President Tinubu, the increase was driven by a 1.4 trillion naira additional revenue from the Federal Land Revenue Service, 1.2 trillion from the Nigeria Customs Service, and 1.8 trillion by other government-owned agencies. And yesterday, we did see this budget go through the House, awaiting the president's assent now. One other high point of the budget is that Nigeria is estimated to spend 15.81 trillion naira on debt servicing. That's about 45% of the country's revenue, and is, of course, higher than what we had in 2024. Now, these are the other high points of its statutory transfers. We see 3.645 trillion debt servicing there, recurrent expenditure, capital expenditure, and these are the major part. Of course, we have the targets for the year. Price of oil, for instance, has been put at $75. The value of the naira has been placed about 150 to $1 and all of that. Let's find out from the founder and chief consultant of B. Adedipe Associates Limited, that's Dr. Biodun Adedipe, now to share his thoughts on this. That's the budget that is awaiting the president's assent. Dr. Adedipe, good morning and welcome to the program.
A very good morning to you, Ini, and thank you for having me here.
Great. So I think first of all, we should start from, we know that the 2024 budget lifespan has been extended. Now we have this budget. I believe we still have a supplementary budget. And how many budgets do we have running at this time? And what's the implication of having multiple budgets running at the same time?
Well, I will put it this way, that yes, we started with an original budget for 2024 at over 27 trillion. And then there was supplementary that was added to that, took it to 34 trillion. Okay. Now, where we are today is that because the budget for 2025 is yet to be signed into law by Mr. President, Nigeria will still be running with the budget for 2024. But once the president assents to the bill and it becomes Appropriation Act, then that brings an end to 2024 budget. For me, in interpretation, there is really no overlap because the law still subsists, and that is the Appropriation Act for 2024 with the supplementary budget, that still subsists until Mr. President signs budget 2025. So really, for me, it's still one budget in principle, actually, that we're running with.
Okay, so we see the budget now, 54.99. We know that the Customs Service has been really active. I believe they're even launching a program today. They were on Business Morning 2 days ago to tell us about the program. We see the tax reform also bringing up some promises. I believe that's one of the reasons why the FIRS has increased its expectations for the year. So, but in spite of this, we still have a high debt. I mean, at over 13 trillion naira. But would you say this budget looks real, workable, so that at the end of the year, we can actually say we've implemented at least 90% of the budget?
Thank you so very much for this question. Now, typically, when we interrogate the budget, we start from the focus of that budget. Does it speak to the existing challenges and problems in the economy and the society in general? That's the first question. Now, once we are clear about the theme of that budget and its nexus with the challenges in the economy and business environment generally, then we'll move on now to look at the assumptions. Now, 4 major assumptions in this budget, and you just mentioned them anyway. And that is crude oil price assumption, then the production figure 2.06 million barrels per day, and then of course we come down to the exchange rate, and then thereafter we now look at the issue of how this plays out in terms of GDP growth rate. Now, if we take all of this into account, the first question is how realistic are these assumptions? If you take the price of crude oil, like you mentioned, a couple of minutes ago, even though like you also warned us that what we see on the spot today doesn't speak for the entire year. So people must also understand that the assumption in terms of the crude oil price in the budget is an average for the entire year, not for one day, not for 1 month or a quarter, even half year. So it's for the entire year. So now what will inform that? So in interrogating that, the question I normally will ask is, what is the outlook for crude oil price in 2025? And that will take me to what is the expectation in terms of the demand for crude oil. For this year, there's an estimated 105.2 million barrels per day demand for crude oil. So now, question again is, which countries are the drivers of this? And there are 4 of them in terms of grouping. Number 1 is China, followed by India, then Brazil. They will lump together Middle East and, of course, the other Far East. Now, what is going to happen to these economies that drive the demand for crude oil in 2025? Number 1, the Chinese economy is expected to grow by 4.7%, the same rate it grew in 2024. So which means there is still going to be some measure of demand from China. Secondly, India. Yes, the economy was growing strongly up on the 2023, dampened a little in 2024. They will expect this year that the India economy will also grow strongly. So that will also be a part of the push for the demand for hydrocarbons. Then we take the Middle East, or let me say we take Brazil, okay? Brazil is number 3 on the line. Brazilian economy also, though slowed down a little bit last year, 2024, is expected to regain its strength in 2025. So these 3 major drivers of what happens in the crude oil market, especially China, are going to give some impetus to the demand for hydrocarbons this year. They will now take the Middle East and, of course, the rest of, Far East. When you take these 4 blocks, there is therefore an indication that the demand for crude oil will still be high. Then take the other side to it, the supply. There's a threat from the US in terms of what President Trump said recently, drill, baby, drill, which means US should produce as much of crude oil as it has capacity for. As of 2 weeks ago, US was producing 13.46 million barrels a day. Even if that is up by 50%, assuming they follow what President Trump said, and that is even almost impossible. You can't ramp up production at that pace that rapidly. But even if that happens, what will that do? Maybe take production in the US, 1 million barrels per day. That leaves a market of 83.94 million barrels per day for OPEC members. So if you play all of this data against each other for the year, clearly the assumption of $75 per barrel for this year in the budget appears realistic. Then we come to production, 2.36 million barrels per day. Again, we look at the trajectory of oil production in Nigeria, and we back up to April 2023, up on today. It's been increasing gradually, which means at some point, as we continue to produce more, and remember, condensate at about 200,000 barrels per day is not part of the OPEC allocation. That gives us some measure of room. So as we up production, then what has been pledged for external borrowings by the previous administration, now if we produce more, we can move beyond that rate and have some wiggle space to export and earn foreign earnings from export of crude oil. Add that to that condensate so that we expand what we earn from crude oil, or let me say generally hydrocarbons, which is crude oil, condensate, associated gas. Now, given that, that gives us a measure of some, confidence. But we now come to non-oil revenue, as you mentioned earlier on, which in fact is why the President did a letter to increase the budget from the 47.96 trillion naira we had before to now 54.2, that the National Assembly moved to 54.99 trillion naira. Question is this: do we really need that much figure? Yes, we do. Because if you look at what many budget analysts in Nigeria do, we are very happy to convert our budget figure into dollars. And then after that, we begin to compare with other countries and make reference, Egypt, Kenya, even Kenya, South Africa, all of them, that their budgets are far, far bigger. So for me, therefore, I don't have any worry about increasing it to 54.99 trillion naira. But what is more interesting to me, and that connects to a part of the question as well, and that is the allocation for capital expenditure. As much as we say yes, in the capital expenditure proposals, there are also, the provision for vehicles, furniture, and whatever. But the reality is that two major things. One is allocation to projects is increased. Then secondly, from what the Minister of Planning said yesterday, and I picked this out, very important for Nigeria, he talked about increasing the capital injection to Bank of Agriculture and Bank of Industry. To me, that is quite significant. Maybe now to also say, we want to see what that budget says about the real estate sector. Are we looking beyond what Murphy is doing currently, all right, in that increase? If that is true, I haven't seen the detailed numbers yet. If that is true about this 54.99 that we're looking at currently, I will say Nigeria is in the right direction with this budget. So it will now remain the last part of the question, execution. And that means we must deliberately set a target of execution very high and then begin to measure the deliverables by our heads of MDA, that is ministries, departments, and agencies of government. If we hold them accountable for the deliverables that these numbers speak to, rather than talking about the numbers only, then Nigeria will be on the path of executing our budget, more effectively than historically.
For that, very elaborate, going to the different parts there, and I hope we'll be able to come back to the issue of implementation. But I just want to bring up some factors that may or may not affect even, the workability of the budget. For instance, we are awaiting rebased GDP and CPI. Do you see that playing any role in the numbers that we have now from the budget?
My view, I think it is somewhere embedded in this figure, and I will tell you why. If you look at deficit GDP ratio in the budget originally presented to the National Assembly by Mr. President, that was over 3%. Okay? But when you look at the one now approved by the National Assembly, it came with a deficit to GDP ratio of 1.52%. So what I did simply was work that back against the budget of 54.99 trillion naira, and that will throw up an implied GDP that is much higher than what we are looking at now. So in my view, I think already National Assembly has built in possibly the estimate of a rebased GDP of Nigeria that they got from MBS. That is my own thinking in interpreting the numbers. Because if I look at the implied GDP, it's a multiples of where we are currently. So in my view, therefore, I believe they factor this in interpreting these numbers.
All right. Then we hear Russia and Ukraine, they have, well, we do hope they are starting peace talks. Now, when we cast our mind back to about 3 years ago when the war in Ukraine started, we know what it did to the world, to oil, because Russia is a major supplier of oil, to logistics, which went down to inflation and affected global inflation. Do you expect that? Hopefully, the peace talks will start and there'll be peace. Do you expect that to change anything?
Right, a very important issue you raised here. But the way I've interpreted that, because I also looked at that, and what I told myself in looking at the numbers and developments around the world is that Russia did not completely drop out of the oil market. Russia was still producing and supplying to the market. But of course, Europe was close to Russia. So what was close to Russia in Europe, of course, was open to Russia in the rest of the world. Russia was still selling, no doubt, but probably not maximizing its capacity to produce and supply to the global market. But don't forget also that whenever we talk about OPEC plus, the plus there is mainly Russia. So for me, the critical factor to look at here is not so much as Russia coming fully into the global crude oil market, but what will happen to OPEC plus? If OPEC plus remains cohesive, Russia coming to that market will not bring any disruption to the global oil market. It will only mean that, yes, Russia is now fully, in the market. It will now be left to Europe whether they want to address the crisis they have also in energy by beginning to take crude and gas from Russia again. That is up to the Europeans. But looking at the global oil market, Russia being a member of OPEC plus, the critical element then is the cohesiveness of OPEC plus. So
but Dr. Adedikpe, yes. but that would mean, for instance, there are some countries that are enjoying cheap Russian oil now.
Correct.
And if those sanctions are taken off and Russia fully participates in the market, wouldn't that reduce the price of oil, therefore affecting our price target of oil for the year?
I don't see so, and I tell you why. Now, the portion of crude oil that Russia could produce and supply to the market is not as significant as what Russia was producing and supply. Yes, correct, at a lower price because it was selling at a discount. So if Russia crude oil comes back, number one is that Russia wouldn't need to sell at a discount. It will probably now sell at the OPEC benchmark prices for different crude types. So to that extent, therefore, I don't see any major dampening the price of crude oil. If you look back again at what I had said earlier on, what actually drives the market are two elements: the demand for crude oil, and then what happens to the Chinese economy on a daily basis. Because I track that market on a daily basis. If you look at what is happening on a daily basis in the crude oil market internationally, it is any news about China that moves the needle of price. Anytime the Chinese government addresses a stimulus, like it happened a few weeks ago, the price starts going up. So it's not even so much as the demand, but what is happening to the Chinese economy. So if you put out an outlook on Chinese economy, for example, today, that says China's economy will not grow at 4.7% again this year, it will grow slower. You will see the effect immediately on the price of crude oil.
All right, Dr. Adedikpe.
So that is why I have that interpretation.
Okay, all right, Dr. Adedikpe, thank you so much. We'll have to postpone that implementation part. Perhaps when the president gives his assent to the budget, we could have that. Thank you so much, founder of B. Adedikpe, consultant, founder and chief consultant of B. Adedikpe Associates, Dr. Abiodun Adedikpe. Thank you for your time.
It's always a pleasure conversing with you. Thank you so very much for having me.
Yes, sir. All right, so the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, that's Credit Corp, They began the distribution of tricycles and motorcycles to participate in the federal government's consumer credit scheme aimed at promoting the purchase of locally assembled vehicles. During the flag off in Lagos, some of the first set of beneficiaries received their vehicles, marking the commencement of the distribution. In collaboration with financial institutions and automobile manufacturers, the program seeks to improve access to structured vehicle financing for Nigerians.
In December 2024, the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Corp, launched a 20 billion naira mobility credit fund aimed at enabling Nigerians to access consumer credit for purchasing locally assembled vehicles.
I say moving forward.
This initiative is set to benefit 50,000 credit-backed Nigerians in its first phase, providing them with the opportunity to own vehicles. Beneficiaries expressed their joy and satisfaction upon receiving their vehicles.
We are going to use it as a commercial. So we use it to carry passengers. So we earn our daily basis from it. Then we pay back to the company. This is the actual business we have been doing to support ourselves and support our family. Most of us, we use this tricycle business to sponsor ourselves to the higher institution.
In collaboration with key partners, this program aims to enhance access to structured vehicle financing, empowering citizens while promoting local manufacturing.
The vehicle today, you'd be purchasing between 30 to 60 million naira, one car. Whereas one of these kekes is, one of these vehicles, these motorbikes, you're starting not small. We are starting to cover a larger number of people, and then we begin to go up the chain to cover people with larger ticket items, meaning things that cost more money for one.
And as I'm talking to you, Bank of Industry has promised to support one of the company that manufacture the tire for tricycle and motorcycle here in Nigeria, because they know the credit scheme is already supporting that credit card and provides credit scheme to support the final product. So there are some interwoven, and that's why I say multiplier effect, because immediately one kick off, other will follow.
Among the critical partners is TVS, the largest assembler of tricycles in Nigeria. The management confirms their capacity to meet the demand generated by this project.
That there is ample capacity within our industry and in our factory, which you have seen, you're right here, to produce much more. In fact, we were doing maybe 3 times the amount we are doing today. But then because of the situation, it has gone down. However, I'm very confident that with this new intervention of the government, this is going to be a game changer.
Action takes the risk algorithm, profile every of the customers through our technology, and then we're able to identify that this customer, through psychometric testing, through financial analysis, be able to say this customer is going to be able to meet our requirement for the loan and the credit card requirement for the loan.
As the consumer credit scheme unfolds, it only promises to change the lives of individuals, but also contributes to the growth of the local economy. The initiative also represents a significant step towards financial inclusion and economic empowerment for many Nigerians.
And yes, just before we head back to Sunrise Daily Studio, the NGX is on fire these days. Hit a new high and then went up. Hit a new high at 107,000, went to 108,000, and even made 109,000. So yesterday it closed at 109,172.04. I hope profit taking will not dampen our Valentine's today, but we'll give you intraday numbers at 1 p.m. During Business Incorporated. Do join me to be you and I. It's Friday, yes, so we always do it together. We'll do 55 minutes of business at 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated. For now, I hand you back to the ladies, Malkwe and Kayla.
Well, thank you very much, Ini. You were sight for saw eyes in red now. Sight for saw sight.
Sight for sore eyes, Ini. Lovely in red this Valentine's Day.
It did. Really serving us Valentine vibes. Well, thank you so much for that. But we are turning our attention now to matters in the Niger Delta region of the country. We all know that the Niger Delta for many years has been the goose that lays the golden egg. And we have joining us this morning Mr. Theophilus Alaye, who is the president of the Ijaw Youth Council Worldwide. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Sunrise Daily, and happy Valentine's Day to you. I hope you're celebrating Valentine's.
For sure.
Because there's not one shade of red on you.
No, this is official engagement. So after this, then we go into the Valentine activities proper.
If you say so, if you say so. But, you know, quite a number of issues to look at in the Niger Delta region. There have been quite a number of them coming up with looking at curbing insecurity, how the NDDC has been faring. Only recently, there was an agitation that, aside the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission, which was, formed to look at development in the Niger Delta region, there's also now a call for another development commission, the South-South Development Commission, separate from the Niger Delta Development Commission. Is that something that the Ijaw Youth Council is aware of? And how is it, if it is aware of it, is it backing it?
Yes. First of all, the NDDC was established to look into the Niger Delta development. But the NDDC established is derivation-based. NDDC, the money that comes into NDDC is from the percentage that is getting from the oil and gas activities that's domiciled in the Niger Delta. Since the IOCs cannot really meet up with their corporate social responsibility, and the federal government on its part cannot meet up with the infrastructural needs of the people of the Niger Delta, the NDDC was established. Today we are talking about Regional Development Commission. So the NDDC, as per se, does not just look about the South-South geopolitical zone. The NDDC cut across all oil-producing states. So today, if Kogi State happens to be an oil-producing state, it's going to be part of the NDDC.
Yeah, but it will not fall under the Niger Delta, will it?
It will definitely. That is today, as we speak, Anambra is about to be incorporated into the Niger Delta Development. We have Imo State in the Niger Delta Development Commission. We have Ondo State in the Niger Delta Development Commission. We also have Abia. So
yeah, but these states, they are all, in the southern parts of the country. Yeah. Ondo State has a sea line.
Yes.
It's very close to, a number of is close to Edo State. Yeah. Edo State is a part of the NDDC. So you have mostly states within the South-South region. It may be a few in the Southeast region. We're saying tomorrow that if oil, they've been prospecting for oil in Borno State since I can remember. If they find oil in Borno now, or as they have found in Bauchi now, Bauchi will now be a part of the Niger Delta development. I mean, wouldn't that be an aberration?
Yes, that is why the people of the Niger Delta over time asked. Because when Anambra got their oil production to commercial quantity, there was a request, a motion in the National Assembly that since Anambra State has gotten oil to commercial quantity, that they should be incorporated into the NDDC. Those discussions are there. So we are saying, since the federal government understands that in so many geopolitical zones there are development deficiencies, and commissions are now being established, we, the people of the Niger Delta, we are saying that we shouldn't be left in those establishments of the commission. As we see, the Northwest has gotten theirs, the Southeast has also gotten there. So now, we have Imo State, we have Abia State from the Southeast that are part of the NDDC. And they also have their development commission, Regional Development Commission. So
do you not think that the suggestion will be that these states that now are, that now have development commissions, that perhaps the derivation to those states should be paid to the development commissions of those states? Since they are meant to develop those particular regions.
But the funding pattern of these regional development commissions and the NDDC are quite different. Where the fund is coming from to fund this regional development commission and the funds that are coming into the NDDC are two different things entirely. So we can't attach both together. In as much as we are the people that are laying the golden egg, some of the percentage that is coming from the oil and gas, because we talk about pollution, we are the people that are bearing the brunt. Day in, day out, as we speak today, any day there is oil and gas, oil pollution in our region, our farmlands are completely devastated. And today, because of the economic importance the government and the IOCs have placed on the oil and gas industry, the Niger Delta is more or less like a pollution heaven, where anybody can come, pollute the environment, and went scot-free without any punishment. So we are saying that if the money that is coming from the oil and gas is the essence of the establishment of the NDDC, and the federal government is today saying that, look, in every region there are developmental challenges, infrastructure and otherwise, and we are establishing commission, there is no need the Niger Delta or the South-South geopolitical zone should be left. So we are
even though the essence of all of these developmental commissions is the same. It's to develop the infrastructure, make sure the region is developed. That's what the Niger Delta Development Commission was meant for. So if other regions are getting their own development commissions, is exactly what the NDDC is supposed to be doing in the Niger Delta that they are supposed to be doing. So doesn't it, isn't it going to be duplication to say, let us have another South-South development commission?
Now, the percentage of this that is coming from going to the commissions, the regional commissions, is directly from the federal allocation. So we are saying that since we, as the Niger Delta Development Commission, the revenue that is coming to us is as a result of the oil and gas facilities or the production that is happening in our place. And if the federal government is now giving certain percentage to regional development, it should be given to us.
I mean, I listened to you talk about how the degradation in fact, there's a court case right now, right? There's a court case now in the UK.
Yes.
And I can see protests from young people in your region of the country. So the Development Commission that has been collecting allocation to better the lives of the people in your region, would you say that the NDDC has been doing its job?
To a larger extent, when you talk about environmental issues in the oil and gas industry, international best practice has made us to understand that the polluter pays. It is your facility. It has nothing to do with us.
So like in the case that is going on right now, Shell should be the one that
There should be, that is the international best practice.
So when it comes to the NDDC, what work have they been doing in your area, in your view?
Yes, the NDDC is an interventionist agency that has to do with the empowerment and to cover up the infrastructural deficiency that is in the Niger Delta. For a period of time, we believe that the NDDC also have had its own challenges, its tough times, and we have also experienced some form of mismanagement.
I'm still waiting for you to tell me some of the things that they've done in your region.
I believe there are roads, internal roads, interstate roads, and even before this time, rural electrification exercises were things that the NDDC used to intervene in our local communities, buying of transformer given to the communities so that they can be connected to the national grid and all the rest. The NDDC has been intervening, but our request over time has been let them invest into capital projects. And I believe with the current MD that is looking inward towards that direction, is currently also having its own challenges because of the Treasury single account system. The Treasury single account system has made it very difficult for the NDDC to go into some signature projects. Because what comes into your purse at the end of the month is what you will use in giving out contracts. So we have been calling on the federal government, on the other hand, to take the NDDC away from the Treasury single account so that they can go into signature projects that will be beneficial to the people of the Niger Delta.
What will be the difference between what the NDDC does and what the South-South Development Commission will do?
No, it is the monetary allocation, where the fund is coming from. Today, like for example, you said Nigeria want to give people scholarship. And because the NDDC is giving scholarship, and the Nigeria is now saying that let every geopolitical zones create a scholarship board where the federal government is going to be paying direct fund into that board so that people can get access to scholarship. Then you will now say that because the NDDC is funding people from the Niger Delta in terms of scholarship, the NDDC should be, the South-South geopolitical zone should be left out on such arrangements. That is just the difference. Because the development commissions, the percentage is coming direct from the presidency account. While the NDDC, as we speak, the fund is coming from the IOCs that are operating and polluting our environment.
Okay.
So the funding that is coming is different. There is no way Nigeria want to save money and we will say that we should be left out. It's not going to be possible.
I like that you created the difference in where the funding is going to come from. What work will they be expected to do in your community that is different?
Yes.
I'll ask it again. The South-South Development Commission.
Yes.
You've explained that the funding for South-South Development Commission and the NDDC are different, right? The funding sources.
Yes.
Now, what work will the South-South Development Commission be doing that the NDDC doesn't do?
We are the same thing the NDDC is doing is the same thing the state governors of the Niger Delta or the NDDC coverage areas is doing. What we need is additional commissions that will give us the needed infrastructural development. So if the commission is going to be established and the commission can give us more projects that will be beneficial to our people, we are okay with it. We don't have a problem with that. And that is what we are asking for.
That's a very interesting dynamic, because if they are going to be doing the same thing, why don't you just make the one that is working work better as opposed to creating a new one?
If the federal government agree that...
Or is it just that you want South-South to have its own?
No, the South-South...
South-East has and South-West has.
And there are some states from...
So what if they say, let's collapse NDDC into South-South Development Commission?
If they do that, we don't have a problem with that. In as much as the derivation that is coming from the oil and gas will still get to the NDDC, and the percentage that is coming from the federal government will still get to the NDDC for the purpose of the development of the people of the Niger Delta. We are okay with it.
Let me quickly take you up on the issue of being together, because something you said about how what the NDDC is currently doing is not different from what the governors are expected to do. And people have been saying, how is it that the governors how they keen into the NDDC, or how is the NDDC keen? I don't know which one is feeding the other one. They've been talking about a Niger Delta development master plan for God knows how long, but that master plan doesn't seem to exist anywhere. If it does exist, it doesn't seem that the governors are aware of it. I have had the privilege of speaking with a few South-South governors before now as to where exactly their own developmental strategies fitted in with the Niger Delta development master plan. And it didn't seem like they were aware that there was any such thing. And if they were, it didn't look like they were implementing it. It looked like they were just going about their own agenda. So as somebody who has been very concerned about the development of the Niger Delta region, is this something that bothers you, that there's no overall? I mean, you take a look at the South-South region, people that talk about the East-West road and how it's remained uncompleted, yet it is a key road within the South-South region that has remained uncompleted for years. I keep asking, if all of the regional leaders there were to put their resources together, is it that road would not be finished, seeing that it is a live wire serving the South-South region? So for you, when you assess just how governors are doing and how the NDDC is doing, do you think that there needs to be an overarching coordination so that people can actually see development come to them?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Some of us over time has also made those suggestions that at least there should be some form of synergy between the NDDC and the governors of the various states that are under the coverage of the NDDC. But administrative bottleneck, the challenges, the power that controls the center, the difference between the political parties that also manage the state, directive where they are taking their directives from and how to implement, political party interests and all the rest has also to a larger extent impacted those developmental deficiencies within the NDDC. Be that as it may, when the likes of Tima Library were in the NDDC, I believe we heard that the NDDC have a master plan where they are going to beautify the entire Niger Delta, connect all the Niger Delta states together. Even the coastal road that was awarded by Mr. President is one of such, because I believe, and I'm still aware that the NDDC carry out the environmental impact assessment and also the project analysis of that particular road. But because of financial difficulties within the commission, they were unable to carry out that particular project. And today, the federal government deemed it fit the importance of that road, and they have kickstarted that project. But we are believing that it is high time, because at least we have now the Brace Commission, the South governors have now come together to see how they can. So with such development, we believe that in no distance time, there will be some form of synergy.
I'm glad you mentioned the Brace Commission, because I was, very aware when it was formed. Do you think, is the NDDC a part of it? Or do you think, if it isn't, do you think it should be?
No, the NDDC is not part of it. That is just
the acronym for the state.
Yes, the state. I know,
yes. But I'm saying, given the fact that they're looking at overall development, do you think that the NDDC should have a representative there at the minimum?
It is the responsibility of the governors to convince the NDDC beyond reasonable doubt why the NDDC ought to be part of that Brace Commission. Because in as much as the NDDC is concerned, it's not just about the South states. Abia is there. Abia is not part of the Brace Commission. So if you are bringing the NDDC into the Brace Commission, definitely you are telling the NDDC to come and look within the South geopolitical zones. As governors, these are the areas we are lacking. And these are the areas in my state as a governor that I would want synergy or collaboration with. Like Bayelsa State, if the government believes that their number one problem is water or electricity, NDDC, for XYZ reasons, in the 2027 budget, please prioritize the electricity generation projects in our state. We are going to partner with you, or prioritize water generation. Those are the ways the Brace Commission will convince the NDDC in order for the NDDC to be part of the Brace Commission. Because the establishment mandate of the NDDC does not give them that right to be part of such establishments. So
oil theft continues to be a major issue. We keep hearing that, oh, look, the federal government is looking to ramp up oil production, especially now that prices are dropping. That we should be doing close to 2 million. Towards the end of last year, we're hoping to get to 2 million barrels per day. We still haven't been able to hit that target. I've seen you, praise a few pipeline contractors in terms of the success of the work that they're doing. But can you really say that they are successful if we're still not able to meet our production targets per day?
What we will ask is it as a result of oil theft? Or is as a result of some areas the NNPC as the company that is at the face of the oil and gas industries? We have to put all those questions before us before we can get. Before this time, Nigeria has produced over 2.2 million barrels per day. So the question is, pipeline vandalism as a result of protests from the Niger Delta reduced. Then as a result of unemployment that was very domiciled in the Niger Delta, people now keyed into the illegal bunkering and all the rest. It affected the production. Today, the federal government thought it wise that the people of the Niger Delta, especially the oil producing community, has been clamoring for inclusion in the oil and gas industry. When we talk about even the 3% OSCOM derivation that is being given to them, we told them that that money should be at least like 10-15%, so that the host communities will be seeing themselves as stakeholders in the oil and gas industry. And those facilities that are domiciled in their area, they might take responsibility to safeguard and protect them. Be that as it may, today, after the federal government thought it wise that the people of the Niger Delta should be carried along and the pipeline surveillance jobs are given to our people, we have seen improvements in the production. We are going somewhere.
But it's clearly still not enough.
So more hands need to be engaged. You have taken Mr. A, you have tried him. There is some level of improvement. So what about if you take more hands in the various states? Definitely we are going to get the needed result. It's even from the side of the NNPC and some players within the corridor of power are comfortable with the politics they are playing with the oil and gas industry in the Niger Delta. So any day, anytime the NNPC is ready and they are ready to engage the people of the Niger Delta to see how more stakeholders, more hands can be put, definitely we can even get up to 3 million barrel production per day. It's certain, the facilities are there. But the sincerity to get it is what we are asking.
And members of the leaders of the Niger Delta are sincere in that regard.
I was just going to go there.
The leaders of the Niger Delta over time have shown their commitment, their high level of sincerity to the survival of the oil and gas industry in the Niger Delta.
I was going to ask you to give a scorecard, really, to the leaders in the Niger Delta.
No, if you want to do that, I can tell you categorically that in fact they have done. If it is by 10% rating, it's 10%. The people of the Niger Delta has been sincere in as much as...
I want to hear that again.
Yes.
If the rating was between 0 and 10, 0 being terrible, 10 being awesome.
It's 10.
It's a 10?
Yes.
To the governors of the South.
Not just the governors, the stakeholders. We are not talking about governors. When we talk about the oil and gas industries, there are critical stakeholders in fact, if I'm a stakeholder, if I'm the leader of my community, and the oil and gas facilities that are domiciled in my environment, I don't think the government of my state will have a high level of control. Of how you are sleeping in your house. Why this facility in question is just at my backyard? So do you believe that the governor that is not from my community will have control how the pipeline that is in my backyard will be managed or secured? We need more hands to be engaged. Today, the Tantita, the pipeline infrastructure that are being owned by people from the Niger Delta are doing good jobs. We need more hands to be engaged in this sector.
You don't think it will be a situation of too many hands?
No, there will be
too many cooks will spoil the broth.
It's not possible. You see, this man is controlling Delta State. His expertise remains in Delta State.
Okay.
The other man that has the stake in River State knows the terrain and the people that are living in River State.
Mr. Theophilus, I've been listening to you since you got in here. On the one hand, there's problem. We need infrastructure growth. We need our young people to be... Then on the other hand, the governors are doing fantastic. The NDDC is doing fantastic. It's a little jarring for my mind, but maybe it's just my mind being very simple. Thinking if you say that there's a problem, then why are you scoring the people who are supposed to handle that problem excellent?
I'm not rating governors' performance excellent.
You just did. You said 10.
No, I said, you asked me stakeholders. That means in the oil and gas.
No, I said governors.
No. That means...
all right, so let's go there. Governors. Give me a scorecard. 0 being terrible, 10 being amazing.
You can't assess all of them on the basis of the same. Some governors are doing extremely well, while some are performing beyond expectation. So if we go on state basis, definitely we can give you the scorecard according to state governors' performance with the revenue that is being accorded to them. Some states, as we speak like this, they don't even have potable water, and they are getting 3% derivation. Some states, as we speak, in the state capital, they can't even boast of 10 hours electricity. So why some states, they enjoy almost 18 hours light. So you can't rate these people on general base. Yes, you must rate them according to the states that they are governing. So if we come to that, that will be discussion for another day, because we have to be deliberate and point out those that are mismanaging the resources, that are governing the Niger Delta, and those that are doing very well.
You can do that. What's stopping you?
I'm clear. I'm sure. Well, I'm sure he's also mindful of time. Well, totally, we've run out of time. We have to thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Mr. Theophilus Alaye is the president, Joy Youth Council worldwide. We have to thank you so much for your time with us this morning on Sunrise Daily. And happy Valentine's Day once more.
Thank you very much, and happy Val to you guys too.
Well, we see some feedback here, and this one is from Pastor Law Alpha Cross, who says it is disrespectful for the Canadian Embassy to shun Nigerians qualified to be given visas to enter their country so far as they're going there legitimately. Let the Interior Ministry seek official explanation from the embassy for that act. And I believe that will be a function of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, Pastor Law.
We're looking forward to that one. And of course, the headlines this morning saying that they will give an explanation. The Canadian Embassy will give an explanation soon. Professor Imonoka Inakana says the National Security Strategy 2019 aims at ensuring that Nigeria's sovereignty, territorial integrity, national interest, the well-being of the people and the country's institutions are preserved, protected, and enhanced. Thus, our national security architecture including management, decision-making, and oversight structures and institutions, as well as national policies, strategies, and plans. All right, well, thank you very much for your messages, Pastor and Prof, for being with us this Valentine Day.
We do feel very loved. Thank you so much.
We do.
Well, that's where we wrap up the program this beautiful day. Thank you for watching. I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
Have a great weekend ahead. Celebrate responsibly, okay? See you soon.
I like that.
I'm Kayla Megwa.